hands on.
Hello? Now it's on. Wow. Well, the first thing I want to just say is para Ari, for Ari. Again, my name is Leila Salazar Lopez, and one, just very moved by this film. To see it on the big screen is another experience. So I'm just very moved. And I'm so honored to be in presence of you all. And so I want to welcome the filmmakers. I want to say thank you to nuestro cacique, to Pitate and the Uru Ewawau people. For protecting and defending the Amazon, for your people, for all the life, and for all of us. And thank you to Nadinia. And as an activist, I feel your strength. And thank you to Alex Pritz and to Will Miller for this amazing film. And so we're going to jump in until the Metreon kicks us out. We're going to jump in and ask some questions. I have a million more questions that I did when I came in. And I work on these issues every day. As I mentioned at the beginning, I work with Amazon Watch, and we work to protect and defend the Amazon and the climate in solidarity with Indigenous peoples. And when I first watched this film, after Sundance, and after Nat Geo picked up this amazing film, I was heartbroken. And I work on these issues every day. And I talk about the fires and the deforestation, but to see it in this way is something else. And so my first question to you, Alex, is what led you on this journey to do this film?
Thank you guys all for being here and coming out to watch the film in community. This is how we meant this film to be seen and to have conversations about it afterwards. So it means a lot to be able to show this to you here today. For me, the film really started with Nadinia. I had read about her work as this fearless defender of the Amazon rainforest, working to protect the rights of Indigenous people and fighting against these monumental forces. I mean, the rise of far-right authoritarianism, deforestation, these supply chains that are transnational. And she was doing it in a part of the world where nearly everybody was against her. In 2018, 78% of people in the state of Rondônia, where Bitete and Nadinia live, voted for Bolsonaro. And it's supposed to be more this election, they expect. So I was just really moved by her fight and her courage and bravery and her sacrifice to do this work. And so reached out and said, look, if Bolsonaro wins, it looks like your life is going to become a lot more difficult, and I'd love to come talk to you about documenting the next several years. And that's where it began for me.
I have a follow-up question for you, and I've wondered this for 6 months, and you all probably have the same question. And I'm going to ask, just so you all know, I'm going to ask a couple questions of each and then open it up. How did you meet Sergio and the other sellers? How did you get them to open up to you like that and film? And yeah, how did you get them to allow you to film them?
I'll start, and then I'll maybe pass to Nadine if that's okay, because I know she's got some to say about this. When we reached out to Sergio, you know, these far-right, very conservative farmers that are engaged in this land grabbing are really closed off and skeptical of the media, feel like they've been maligned by the media, who paint them only as criminals, and they see themselves as these pioneering heroes, these virtuous people going out and turning wilderness into private property. What could be more sacred than private property in Brazil? And so when Martin says things like, this is how Brazil was created and every other country too, he's right, in a sense. That doesn't mean it's a good thing, but they have their own internal logic. And one of the things I was struck by when I first began filming with them was how similar it was to the ideas of Manifest Destiny, westward expansion, the displacement and violence towards Native people here in the United States. And so I was able to start a conversation with them, trying to understand their motivations, engaging in this violence and destruction, but without condoning it or trying to justify it in any way. But what it really came from was a desire to paint a more realistic and nuanced portrait of this conflict in a way that was actually going to help people like Cordelia and Vita do their work, because these morally reductive black and white versions of this conflict actually impeded their ability to work. But I'll pass to Nadine to maybe talk a little bit about why we reached out to these people in the first place.
Boa noite a todos, todas e todes. Eu quero iniciar primeiro pedindo permissão ao povo indígena de São Francisco que me dê licença e permissão para falar aqui com vocês.
Yes, so Nadine, so good evening to all of you. I'm very pleased to have everyone here, and the pronouns in Portuguese indicate masculine and feminine, so she made a point of including everyone. And she said, I want to begin by thanking the indigenous people of San Francisco and by recognizing them as we are on their soil.
E como que o Alex se envolveu com os invasores?
And regarding the way Alex got involved with the invaders,
Dia chegou na minha casa, junto com Gabriel Uchida, que é o outro produtor, rapaz branco, americano, dizendo, ixi, acho que são os espíritos da floresta.
that's the spirits of the forest,
Dizendo que queria fazer filme comigo e o povo indígena Uruauau.
So Alex and somebody else showed up at my door one day, and here I am looking at this very white, very foreign, very American man, and he's standing there and he's saying that he wants to do a film with us.
E eu disse para ele bem assim, olhei para esse rapaz, né? Falei, me lembrei que quando eu era criança, eu aprendi a ler em livros de Bang Bang.
So I looked at this man, this tall white man, and I remembered how when I was a child I learned how to read with books and magazines that were Western. In Brazil they call them bang bang movies because of the bang bangs, right? Guns.
E lá, os rapazes brancos, poderosos, matavam todos os indígenas e viravam heróis.
In those movies, the tall, beautiful white men would shoot up all of the Indians and become heroes.
E eu pensei, tá querendo vir para cá querer me filmar e me dar de presente espelhinhos?
So he wants to come here and film us and give us little mirrors as gifts.
E disse para ele: é o seguinte, você quer fazer o filme? Ok. Só que você tem que fazer um filme que tenha o nosso olhar, como a gente vê, como os Urueu-Auau veem, e também como os invasores veem.
Okay, so you want to come do this movie, you want to come do a film, all right? But you've got to do it in a way that reflects our perception, our point of view, the point of view of the Urueu-Auau people, and the point of view of the squatters, the invaders, the settlers.
E ele disse: mas os invasores vão me receber?
So he asked the question, will the settlers receive me?
Eu disse: eles adoram americanos.
I told him they love Americans.
Eles vão dizer tudo o que você quiser.
They will tell you everything you want them to tell you.
E eles são bolsonaristas.
And they are supporters of Bolsonaro.
E antes que eu me esqueça de falar, fora Bolsonaro.
And lest I forget, get out of here, Bolsonaro. Down with Bolsonaro.
Então ele disse: ok, então eu vou. E saímos para a estrada, para a aldeia.
So he said, okay, I'll do it. And we headed down the road towards the village.
Tudo estava queimando em Rondônia. Toda a floresta, tudo pegando fogo.
Everything was burning in Rondônia. Wildfires or deliberate fires everywhere. Everything was catching fire.
Eu dirigindo uma caminhonete e Alex fala: para! Tinha um fogo enorme, imenso. Ele: para aí.
We're driving along in the pickup truck, and Alex looks out the window and says, stop! And there's this fire everywhere, this huge wall of fire.
Pega a máquina dele e vai sumindo no meio do fogo.
And he gets his camera, and he walks out and disappears into the flames.
Eu pensei, se ele é louco suficiente para fazer isso, ele serve para trabalhar com a gente.
So I figure if he's crazy enough to do that, he's crazy enough to work with us.
E foi assim que a gente começou o filme.
And that's how the movie began.
So about the footage, I mean, there's just breathtaking, beautiful footage, gorgeous landscape, I mean, heartbreaking footage of the fires, just the way that the design, I heard it say verite. I'm not a super film person, but the aesthetic, the vision, how did you combine how did you maintain the cinematic aesthetic while also capturing the story?
Yeah, I think that was one of the big challenges of this film, was how to tell a story that was rooted in character and rooted in individual people's lives, but that was also going to capture the immense nature of this conflict. You know, this is a regional conflict that we were following, the lives of these individual people, but it's emblematic of what's happening across the Amazon. And we didn't want to lose sight of that. And so the one thing we found to kind of help broaden the film a little bit without getting into the nitty-gritty of statistics or whatever else was to really move between the macro and micro scales of this. And so pulling out to satellite imagery where you can see 2 decades of deforestation and what that looks like, the scale of forest lost. And also see these political boundaries rendered in ecological terms. So, you know, anywhere that you see forest is indigenous territory or protected land. Anywhere that's private property is brown. And that's visible from outer space, looking at, you know, South America from coast to coast. And so we wanted to be able to capture that, but we also wanted to capture the grandeur of these relationships that exist within the forest. You know, this feeling of being there in the forest, and sound was a huge part of that. You know, capturing the layers of life within this forest meant bringing our composer to Brazil, meeting Vitate, meeting the Uruau, establishing her own relationship with these people, and capturing sounds of the different environments that we were in there. And so when you hear Vitate's community approaching the invader's house, there's that rhythmic element. That's actually a Uruau bow and arrow with a contact microphone on it. She put microphones inside a tree as it was falling down to capture that splintering crescendo. And you know, sometimes it sounds like a sort of kitschy thing to say at Q&As, but really it was about us not trying to impose a score on top of the film itself, but have it feel like it was organically built from the environment in which the film takes place. And so, you know, all of this combined, we just wanted to build an experience of you really feeling like you're there in the rainforest and connecting with these people emotionally.
Beautiful score. I mean, the sound was incredible.
Katia Mihalova, amazing composer.
Vitate, cacique. You were only 19 when your people and the elders nominated you to be the leader, to be the new president of the Jupau Associación. What does this responsibility mean to you?
Boa noite a todos. Desculpa não falar inglês.
Good evening to all of you. My apologies for not speaking in English.
Eu acho que quando eu assumi a liderança do meu povo, foi quando eles decidiram mesmo, porque entrou o governo Bolsonaro e precisava de alguém para que possa também conduzir o nosso povo também da mesma mentalidade que o próprio governo ia atacar nosso povo.
So when my people requested that I step up as a leader, I felt that this was necessary because this was about the same time at which Bolsonaro was stepping in as president of Brazil, and I felt that our people needed somebody who would lead in a way that would match his way of approaching and basically attacking us.
E também agradecer a mãe Neidinha, que sempre foi uma pessoa que esteve do meu lado, sempre me apoiou. E hoje eu estou aqui por causa dela e também por causa do meu povo.
I'd like to thank Mother Neidinha for all of the support, and I would never have gotten where I did without her help. And I would also like to thank my people, the Uruau.
E durante todos esses anos, passamos por várias dificuldades, tivemos a morte do Ari, tivemos também a invasão dentro do nosso território, o trabalho de poder proteger o território.
So during that time, we had a number of challenges, difficulties, obstacles that we faced. We had the death of Ari, we had the invasion of our land, and a series of other things.
E durante também a gravação do filme tivemos grande participação de filmar, porque alguns trechos foi nós indígenas que filmamos.
During the whole filming process, we had the opportunity to participate directly. A number of the scenes, a lot of the footage was actually captured by indigenous camera people.
E teve também no filme a visão de nós próprios indígenas, como que a gente deveria filmar.
And in the film, in the movie, it was possible to capture and to leverage the vision that our people had of how to produce a movie and how to do the photography.
Muito bom, muito bom. I'm very proud to partner with Media India. At Amazon Watch, we partner with a youth indigenous media team, which Vitate is a part of, and they do basically this kind of work all over the Brazilian Amazon, and even go to international gatherings such as the climate conferences to document their people's and amplify their people's work and voices from their communities all the way to the UN. Oh, so many questions, but I want to give you all a chance just to ask questions. Just maybe one more for Narinia, and then we can open it up. I don't know how much more time we have. Now that the film, or Narinia, now that the film is complete, and there's so many stories to tell about what's happening in the Brazilian Amazon with indigenous peoples and for demarcation. What do you hope that we as audiences all around in the United States and around the world take away from this film? What do you want us to take away?
Nós no Brasil vivemos provavelmente dos momentos mais difíceis para o povo indígena.
In Brazil, we are going through what is possibly one of the most difficult periods ever in the history of the indigenous people.
Para que vocês tenham uma ideia, nós ontem recebemos a notícia da morte do índio isolado do Tanaru.
As an example, yesterday we received the news of the death of one of the isolated Indians. Can you repeat his name? What did you know?
Índio isolado do Tanaru.
Do Tanaru.
Eu dou trabalho danado pro tradutor.
I give the interpreters
A quem eu já
challenging
peço
work,
perdão.
so I apologize to them.
Complementando a fala da mãe Neidinha, foi o último homem, o último indígena do povo, da qual a gente não sabe o nome, a língua, e também eu como indígena fico muito triste com isso.
The victim of the murder was the last male, of this isolated people, a people for whom we don't know the language, we don't know their culture, we don't know their style, their life.
Vocês sabem o que é estar em pleno século e povo ser extinto?
Can you imagine and grasp the enormity of being in the middle of the 21st century and having a people go extinct?
É o que aconteceu agora no Brasil.
This is what has happened now in Brazil.
Então, o que vocês que estão aqui podem fazer?
So what you, who are here today, what you can do,
Nós estamos lá lutando por nós e por vocês.
we are there struggling, fighting on behalf of ourselves and for you.
Mas a gente precisa que vocês lutem por vocês e por nós.
But you need to fight for yourselves and for us.
Então, se me perguntam o que vocês podem fazer,
So if you ask me, what can we do?
eu digo: primeiro, nos ajudem a tirar aquele governo.
First of all, I say, please help us to remove that administration.
Depois, ajudem as organizações, ajudem quem faz bom filme sobre o que acontece conosco.
Then I say, help the organizations, help the outfits that make movies and films like this one.
E também ajude os indígenas dos Estados Unidos da América.
And help the indigenous people of the United States of America.
Porque esse povo daqui também está sofrendo.
Because our people, these people, the indigenous people, are suffering here as well.
Nós temos uma campanha de impacto, que eu nunca sei dizer como é, então vou passar o Will dizer qual é a campanha de impacto.
There's an impact campaign, and I can never say the name of it, so I'm going to ask Will to say the name of the campaign.
Just encourage you, we've put together a lot of resources and information at the territory, it's the name of the film, theterritoryimpact.org. You go to this website, you'll also find the link, but we've tried, it's not an easy question to answer, it's not an easy problem to solve, but there's a lot of resources there and there's ways to contribute directly to their work, to support. You can donate directly to Jubo Association, the organization of Beats Community. You can donate directly to Canindé, Ingenious organization, and to so many other indigenous-led movements, both within Brazil and internationally. I think we as a film recognize that there is a lot of activity, there's a lot of people working on this, and so we're not trying to create a new campaign or create some kind of new work, but I think we're invested in the media team that's emerged from this beautiful collaboration, and I think that, you know, one thing that's kind of worth noting is that there's a lot of energy still there that's going to outlive the film, and we're really excited about that. So there's going to be a brick and mortar, it's going to be a traditional building. We're going to have a cultural center built in the community that will be a headquarters for the media team with a place to edit, with podcasting studios, with places for the equipment. We're going to have a lot of activities there, and at the same time, we're also trying to create a whole set of programming around this work. And Bita, I just want to give a little update. Bita has just been admitted. It's going to be starting in a couple weeks. He's going to be the first person from the Uruguay who's going to go to university, study journalism. So it's just been an honor to try to continue the support past the life of the film. And if you go to theterritoryimpact.org again, you can find ways to get involved as well.
Thank you, Will.
Não, eu só queria dizer uma coisa também, importante.
I just wanted to say something too, important.
Às vezes, as pessoas nunca perguntam como é que tratam as equipes.
People often forget to ask how the team is treated.
E eu quero aproveitar aqui para agradecer a NetGill,
I want to take the opportunity to thank Annette Jill
e agradecer a toda essa equipe, Sigrid,
and
toda
to thank the entire
aqui,
team
mulher
here,
maravilhosa,
the wonderful woman here,
o povo todo da equipe que está com a
the
gente,
entire team,
e toda essa equipe maravilhosa que tem um cuidado comigo, que eu estou me sentindo como se eu fosse uma verdadeira rainha da floresta.
and this entire wonderful team that has treated me in such a wonderful way that I feel like I am an authentic queen of the forest.
E ao carinho de todo o povo americano, porque de Nova York, Chicago e São Francisco, nós temos recebido o carinho de todos vocês, e eu tenho certeza que quem vem assistir esse filme é porque tem compromisso com os povos indígenas e a natureza, e só tenho que dizer para vocês muito obrigado. Thank you very much.
Carinho. Carinho is a special Brazilian version of love. You really have to be there to experience it. But she is thankful for the carinho, for the affection that was shared with us, that was showered on us as we visited New York and Chicago and San Francisco. So I just want to thank the American people for the way we've been received.
All right, I lied because I do have one more question. But one thing when I think about the territory, I think of indigenous territories protecting life. There's so many endless studies that we know about, and we as activists and indigenous defenders always want to uplift the latest studies that say over and over again that more than 80% of our planet's biodiversity, life on this planet, is in indigenous peoples' territories. All of the green that you see on those images, those are indigenous peoples' lands and territories. And so sometimes I forget that, like, oh yeah, that's like so normal, you know, that we say it all the time, but I always feel like I need to say it again to make sure that we all know that what indigenous peoples are protecting for all of us. In less than 5% of the land on Earth. So when indigenous peoples and defenders like Nedinia put their lives on the line, they're defending life. So I just want to ask either one of you or any of you, you know, what does territory mean to you?
Território para mim é casa, é vida, é viver dentro da floresta.
Territory for me is home, it's life, it's living in the forest.
E território também é proteger a humanidade e também proteger os povos indígenas isolados.
Territory also is about protecting humanity and protecting isolated groups, Indian groups.
Território para mim é isso. Se a mãe quiser falar alguma coisa, eu deixo.
That's what territory is for me. If Mother Nijinga wants to say something, it's her turn.
Território para mim é espiritualidade, paz, vida de pessoas, dos animais, da floresta. Mas território para mim também é luta, porque é lá que nós estamos lutando para manter o clima desse planeta. Eu li tudo. Repito tudo de novo. Até onde tu foi, vai. Aí a parte que tu esqueceu, continua.
So, territory for me is spirituality, it's peace, life, and
Pessoas, animais,
people, animals, living creatures,
floresta
the forest,
e luta.
and struggle,
E
fighting.
é lá que estamos.
That's where we are.
Do you all want to answer that? I mean, your film is called The Territory.
If you want to go for it, well, otherwise, I feel like they covered everything on my side.
I have no business answering this question. I feel like the territory to me was an honor, and I think that in general it's a reflection on what we leave behind, and I think that the legacy that outlives the immediate. I think there's something timeless and bigger in kind of seeing this bigger fight. And I just feel both small but also empowered, and I feel grateful for those intentions.
Wonderful, thank you. Question?
For Alex. I assume you saw more than what I saw on the screen. Can you share a little bit of the struggles you had with the film? Because it took, from what I saw, to assume that.
Yeah, so for anybody who, the question was, it took years to make this film, just describing some of the struggles that existed behind the camera. You know, I think, like, especially in documentary filmmaking and the type of filmmaking that we wanted to do, which was really present tense filmmaking, where you were there with people as things were unfolding. 95% of that happens off camera, of my job difficulties due to COVID, fires, rain, huge emotional difficulties. I think for everybody when Ari died, we stopped production. We discussed whether it was safe to keep going, whether it was emotionally responsible to keep going for our team, the community. All of that was more than we ever expected was going to be part of this film. There's also, an interesting thing when you're making a collaborative film with a community like this, where the Igro Wow operate by consensus, and there are 6 villages. And so for any decision to get made, people have to sit together for as long as it takes to reach consensus, and that can be hours, and it can be multiple days sometimes. And film teams are quite hierarchical by nature, normally. There's a director and producer who make decisions, and assistant editors, and other people who carry those out. And so adapting our film structure to meet this community and not try to change their decision-making structures, but to adapt ourselves to work within that was a really interesting experience for me, and something that I think I'll carry with me into the next project. I felt very safe with Igor Wow. I did not always feel safe with the invaders. And I think that feeling of insecurity was actually really helpful and helped us prepare better strategies to protect ourselves. But I always knew I was being watched. I would get photos of myself sent to myself from numbers I didn't know in the back of my head eating lunch. And so there's this sense that you're being held up in a bit of a fishbowl and examined and analyzed, and any wrong step at any point could be bad for you.
I got someone back here.
A question about the use of technology, specifically drones and photographs for the folks in Virginia and that are using it. You showed that they were taking images of the territory from above to send to Funai. And it seems that the government wasn't interested or could do anything. I actually work in a similar fashion in the Peruvian Amazon with indigenous communities that are being invaded by illegal gold miners, Garimpeiros. And there's a similar dynamic where we work with them to provide, to do drone work. There's images of invasion, it's sent to the authorities, and nothing happens. And then there's frustration. Could you talk about how that interface between doing what you can and the government not doing anything, and how the community deals with that problem?
Então, a gente começou a usar a tecnologia, foi a favor nosso, para fazer a denúncia mesmo.
We began using technology, drones and cameras, as I interpret for him, I will add in a little bit just to reproduce some elements from your question. So they began doing the recording of the images in order to denunciar, to report this to the authorities.
E a gente sabia que qualquer momento, se as autoridades não tivessem, não tomassem responsabilidade, a gente teria um conflito dentro do nosso território.
We knew that if at any time after reporting the data to the authorities, if the authorities did not take action, that there would be issues within our community.
E a gente também tomou essa decisão de usar a própria tecnologia para a nossa segurança.
We also decided to use our own technology, our own equipment, for our own safety.
E eu acho que isso funcionou muito bem para nós, porque dentro do nosso território a gente consegue fazer um pouco do trabalho que a própria fiscalização deveria fazer, como numa cena em que a gente prende o invasor.
This worked very well for us because there are ways in which we can do things that FUNAI should be doing, that the agency should be doing and does not do, such as the scene in which we arrest somebody. We detain them.
E a tecnologia também ajudou a gente a fazer, tipo assim, não somente na questão de invasão, na questão de grileira entrar, também ajudou também na questão da própria produção, que a gente podia mapear as produções dentro do nosso território, para saber quantitativo de alimentos que a gente podia fazer e também gravar nossas próprias culturas.
The use of technology allowed us to go beyond just capturing the images. We also were able to participate in production of the material, and we were able to work with the data that we were gathering and assemble it. Use this with the data that you saw in the big charts, the big maps, satellite, airplane assembled data, to learn more about the food supply in our own territory.
O uso de tecnologia, dos drones e das máquinas filmadoras e fotográficas
The use of drones with the filming equipment and the still photograph hardware
ajudou a salvar as vidas dos Uruauau.
helped us to save the lives of the Uruauau.
Porque antes, quando a gente fazia o monitoramento,
Previously, when we did our monitoring,
tínhamos que chegar muito, muito perto do invasor para poder fotografar.
we had to get extremely close to the settlers, the squatters, in order to generate images.
Agora levantamos o drone e vemos a imagem e planejamos como vamos fazer a ação.
We are now able to raise the drone up, get a high-level view of everything, and plan the next phases, the next steps.
Se tem muito invasor, chamamos a FUNAI. Polícia,
If the quantity of invaders, settlers is large, then we will contact FUNAI or the police.
se tem pouco, cercamos ele, pegamos e aí chamamos a polícia.
If it's a small quantity of outsiders, we can surround them, we can capture them, detain them, and then we call the police.
E assim continuamos lutando.
That is how we continue our struggle.
Lembrei também que se as autoridades brasileiras não tomam providência, a gente denuncia internacionalmente, onde a gente tem uma força muito grande que pressiona o próprio governo.
The other thing I remembered is that if we report this to the authorities and the Brazilian authorities, the police take no action, we can report this internationally because we have a voice, we have visibility, and we have support globally.
I also just want to add a point of clarification, because I think perhaps you picked up on it, but in case there's any confusion, we did not bring the drones. We did not bring the technology. This was the hallmark of Vita's leadership, was bringing in new connectivity and access. And so when we arrived, those drones are already there. The walkie-talkies, all that tech that you see, that was Vita and Virginia sitting, writing grants, raising money. The only thing we brought was later on, they
assim,
wanted better cameras and stuff, so we got involved later on. But the basic idea was already there.
só assim, tem uma mulher a quem eu devo muito, que é Marion, então eu tenho que agradecer, porque foi ela que conseguiu a tecnologia para a gente.
There is a woman to whom I owe a great deal, and that is Marion, who is right here. So I would just like to thank her and acknowledge her publicly.
she helped to support the technology getting to their territories. So it looks like we have to wrap it up right now. I know you all probably have many more questions. We're going to stick around outside, but I think the theater has to be used for something else. So once again, thank you. Amazing film. Another round of applause.
Interpreter as well. We worked with a lot of interpreters. It's one of the most important roles in any team, and did a great job. And I